And that is more like it. All right. I hope everyone's having a good night. We have a second wind, feeling nice and energetic. Although I thought it was 4 minutes, 3 to 4 minutes earlier than it was. These things happen. It's actually 3 to 4 million years earlier, or should I say later than it is. But that's another story. All right, this is Art for Truth. We are Art for Truth. We've been coming at you here for a month. Live Instagram, doing various different kind of late night, just free flowing jams. Some songs, some thoughts, some instrumentals. Some things mellow, some things bizarre. But everything is from the heart. This is about the passion and power of art. if I may say so. This is nice. This feels nice. I like these Mellow Monday jams. I do another live stream thing on Facebook that on basically like happy hour kind of a jam, and each day of the week has a theme, and Mellow Monday is the theme for Monday. So sometimes I do that. I transfer my themes, whether I announce it or not. Sometimes I don't. When I do my midnight and middles. I don't recall playing on a loop exactly like this. Similar, but no. Well, of course, similar. When you play, one of the things about playing a tuning like this is you often play things that are very similar, and you've got to be somewhat creative about trying to have variance in it. I hope I do. I know I don't always. But I certainly try to have at least enough something different in each body of what I do. I thoroughly believe in difference. Indifferent. What does that mean? I thoroughly believe in doing something, being and living in such a way that where you can diverges from any other way of living, but yet connects to it, doesn't inherently negatively alienate you from it, but rather positively connects you to the individualism of life. One way that can be done is have your individualism, that thing that you do different, be something that works in favor of a positive existence. I, of course, always advocate for the creative aspect of existence. So if the thing that you do different, and whenever you try to do something, if it's violently criminal or sadistically hurtful, then no, I don't advocate that. But if it is, the difference that I'm talking about, be different positive, be different in your art. But don't be different in necessarily a way that just gives the finger to everything else. Because, I mean, if that's what you need to do, then that's what you need to do. I've done it. I understand it. For me, it was a phase. For others, it might be a way of life. But I don't advocate it. That's not what I'm about. Though I try to respect where everything comes from. When you get to the levels of pure hate and pure just bigoted, complete destruction, well, it gets harder and harder and harder to find peaceful, rational, beautiful ways in which to turn their eyes around. But there are ways. There are ways. Bigotry can beget bigotry. A pendulum can swing both ways. It is so important that we learn to find the beauty of all our existences and our place in it without the hierarchies in this ways that we have had them, without the systems of measure and control in the ways that we have had them. One or a small group of people controlling most of the resources is not okay. But we do need people with sense, wisdom, to help to guide, to go through the tricky parts of things and dealing with trying to distribute goods and resources to billions of people. To be perfectly honest, though, if we take the business out of it, take the money out of it, and we rely more on microcosmic systems in our communities supported by larger macrocosmic systems on, which is essentially the idea of what our government is, but get rid of that kind of the government part and just have it be dare I say, us working in functioning communities to better manage the way that we use our own resources rather than have great distribution. Yes, we will have people who work very hard, harder than others inherently. We will have people with inherent talents and wisdoms and gifts and abilities. We will have people who can naturally excel to different things, and everyone will have their abilities. But here's the thing, in a system of democracy that will really work, every individual needs to be brought to be their best self. It doesn't mean each individual best self has every single same attribute or the same general gravity of how everything affects everyone else. But what it does mean is that everybody is a big part of it. Everybody is connected to it. And if everybody is their best selves, then in whatever way somebody is interacting, whether you're in the microcosm of your family or the macrocosm of being a leader of a whole country, and everywhere in between, in any number of the different vocations or ways that we go in life, and we learn to respect and interact how everybody connects in their own way to the growth and beauty of our existence. We can truly redefine how we have what democracy means, what equity means, what leadership means. Because how can we allow people to be their best selves if they don't have the basic things in which they need? There is enough resource on this planet for everybody to have comfortable living, clean clothing, clean water, food, healthy, non-poisoned food. A vocation that means something, and time to spend with family and hobbies. I would say those, just spouting right now, seem like a nice little round set of basics. If most people had that, an actual role or say in their community, not feeling like, oh, corrupt politicians or corrupt cops or all of this, they're in charge of everything and we don't, and then the say that you want to have gets angry, the say gets loud, the say gets loud together, people start to agree, and then the say gets irrational, the say turns into the mob. Maybe that, and of course the systems that we have now set us up to have that happen. But if we had a real democracy, people could feel a sense of their voices being heard, a sense of playing a part in their regular communities, and not feel like any meetings that they might participate in, any local governments, any activism or anything is just met upon deaf ears or is just going to be thwarted by a corrupt system. If the system was not corrupt, the people's contribution would be very important. Okay, I'm just having this thought. This just occurred to me right now, okay? As far as kind of a system of I don't want to say formalized self-government, but it is okay in this sense of democracy in which I am hypothesizing right now. Just a thought that I just had. So do you remember in school? I know I remember in school, we would get into groups sometimes, right? There wouldn't be necessarily, but it really wouldn't be about a competition among the groups. But it would be like, okay, you 3 people are going to work together, or you 4 people, you'll work together. Teacher might split you up. Sometimes you get to choose whatever it is. You just all pick numbers or whatever, right? But most of us, I would think, have had done group projects in school. And everybody's working basically on the same idea or project, right? Sometimes everyone's group is a little bit different. That makes it more interesting. Sometimes everyone comes out in a little bit of a different way. But the idea is, in this one microcosm of the classroom, you have broken down again in division of other smaller microcosms to solve a problem that come together to enhance the larger microcosm of the classroom. Sometimes classrooms get together to do that. These 3 or 4 classrooms will do these things in these different groups, and the people within those classrooms will often intermingle. Because it's not like the groups have to be the same all the time. Remember that. Often in those classrooms, the groups get mixed up. I remember at least some of the best teachers I had didn't always let us pick our own groups. You work with different people that way. You get to understand people more, different personalities, and different ideas and different interactions of ideas. So therefore, different solutions to problems or different ways of expressing the project. And so, yes, and that goes on with the school, right? You do that in the different classes. Sometimes it interacts with grades. You might have different things, different art groups or projects, art shows, in the form of, it breaks off in sports, of course. That's more like, that's competition. Even with theater, there was a sense of competition, but no, that didn't really mix and interact. Okay, so the point is, I don't need to keep breaking this up. The point is that we can have, you have these groups of government in these classrooms, these groups that are there to figure out certain problems, okay, that are faced. And in our own communities, they can be problems of pollution, problems of self-governance. How do we police ourselves rather than have a police department? How do we serve that purpose? How do we beautify our communities? How do we truly incorporate art into things? And how do we take care of basic things like potholes and vandalism, and so on? So what if we did more like that, and we had these meetings and these groups where we get together in smaller groups, and then we'd come together in like maybe larger groups and then have these ideas. That way it's not like everyone's at this meeting, just perhaps each group has a representative or 2, however we want to decide. It doesn't have to be super mandated as long as it flows. And then, rather than these meetings, community meetings where it's like, everyone's just like, rubble, rubble, rubble. Or it's let's have those smaller interactions and then re-interact. And maybe the groups change each time. Maybe we can have some fun with it and get a little bit more involved. So these are ideas of ways that we can move to the next level of our systems of being human, our self-governance, our economies, and our ecologies. It's ludicrous if we have any sense of history whatsoever. It is, history alone, let alone art, science, free thought, etc. But I don't want to get snippy. Okay, history. Let's just plain old look at history. If you have any sense of history at all, you will see that systems of government change and, in a sense, work to get better. They evolve or can. We do not have absolute answers. When a system is broken, it needs to be fixed, and if it cannot be fixed, it needs to be replaced, and that is okay. To worship a system that is broken is rather than to have a system, than to work towards a system that works for everybody, is part of the disease of the way we find comfort in things. It's without realizing that in our comfort the world is crashing all around us, and if we for a second stepped outside our comfort, we'll see, perhaps too late, that there's nothing else left for us, for anything. So we need to step outside that comfort, and we need to come together in these different ways that aren't about protecting this idea of a perfect system when there is no such thing. It needs to evolve. I'm not talking about communism. I'm not talking about overthrowing the government. I'm talking about evolving human beings so that we have our own true sense of democratic a democratic, community-based government. Why can't the best of democracy and the best of quote-unquote communism, which I know is a four-letter word, and as far as a system of government and how it's been militarized and dictatorialized, then of course. And I'm not a big fan of the by any means necessary stuff either, because I think the ends are the means. If we get to something through violence, then we have violence. If we get to something through power and peace and strength and love and art and all this, then that's what we have. But why not take the best of that? Why this war? Why this us against them? Oh, you're a communist. So does being an American and being a democratic person or whatever, being, living in a democratic country, mean that you want other people to suffer? If you don't want other people to suffer, you don't believe in democracy. That just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. There is no reason for there to be super rich hoarders. There is absolutely no reason for there to be the poverty there is, for there to be the fucking torture there is, for there to be the problems that there are. No reason other than the power of greed that has taken over the few who have done everything they possibly can to corrupt and protect their systems and corrupt the people so that they are weak and will not fight against their power. They've done it by poisoning us with their products, their goods, their fake medicines, their fake drugs, their fake entertainment, their fake senses of identity, an absolute and total indoctrination of conflict seeking, of militarism, of sexual confusion and derision. An absolute mess, and they have propagandized the things that we should hold dear, things like the spirit, things like medicine, things like sex, and to a point, things like love and protecting ourselves from danger. They have propagandized those things into a point that has turned us into a self-eating snake. One end eats the other, or however that works. And that is how they maintain control over all of our resources. Well, that can change. And the best way for it to change is for us to come together and work in our individual lives, and some of us more, those who are really called to it, to come out into a further sense of the community and into leadership to show people that we don't need these corrupt systems to guide and lead us. We start with the microcosms of our communities, you know? I'm looking forward to sharing the food that we grow with some of our neighbors and them too. And it's a small thing, but because of the virus and because of, well, that was the main thing, and it continues now with everything. We decided that having our little pod, our little microcosm of people here, and hopefully others are doing the same, to share our creativeness, to share some of our goods, to be there for each other, and just to know that there's more than that, there is a community. It's a great start in working to find that true democracy. It is okay to say, hey, we have a lot of things that have worked, a lot of wonderful things that our forefathers have showed upon us that we didn't have before, and there's a lot of great things that have happened and that we have, and that we should hold true and maintain. But it does not mean that those things mean everything else is deplorable, is forgivable. And it does not mean that we have to get rid of all the good things to change. No, let's keep the good stuff, get rid of the horrible stuff, and figure out a way. Let us empower people to have a better say in our microcosms of our existence. Let's make the world beautiful. Let's turn trash into art. Let us make a whole new culture of it. Let's incorporate it into dance and ritual and festivals and life, daily life. Let's make a whole economy of it. Some will be making food artfully, presented in such a way where they are just the creativity of it is fluid. The decorations will be very, very artful. There'll be everything about it. This could be our everyday life. The way that we buy things and make products and all this stuff can be artful. It can be beautiful. It can be a festival all the time. And not that there aren't problems at festivals. Sometimes things go wrong. The electricity goes out, or someone gets violent, a little too wasted or whatnot. There are always ways to handle that the best way possible, with love and with a sharp head and some wisdom and patience and a deep breath. We can learn to do that more and better if we're not propagandized to be panicked about each other all the time and to want to just say when anything happens. We can do this, ladies and gentlemen. We can do this. Wow. It's been a half hour already. Alright, I do want to switch to something else. Though I've really been enjoying this. Thank you for listening. There's one thing that I do want to say. I think it's important. So in regards to the current movement to defund the police and to take drastic measures to stop the racist institution of police brutality. In regards to this, ultimately, I wholeheartedly support a method of community safety programs that do not require an individual group of people to have lethal power over other people, but rather for those members of the community who are willing to volunteer and those who would be police people because of the goodness of their hearts to really do a good amount of, to do a lot to serve people and to do good in the community. Rather than have a police force, if we have people like you good cops, working with larger groups of people, of volunteers of the community to help answer problems. If we have a lot more funding allocated towards mental health intervention as opposed to violence law enforcement intervention, and to have the people who would be police and who do that, which is because of the way the system is, a service that is, if you just pulled it completely, then there would definitely be some chaos. It would need to be done right. So it is a necessary system at this point, but because of the way things are. But if we work to change things, we can keep the essence of the goodness of that, the people who work there hard. Let us not forget that there are good police officers that go out there, don't necessarily get corrupt, go into a situation and get shot and killed by someone who is doing something that is very hurtful or harmful to others. And they're going out there to try to stop that person. And it's not something everybody would do. We need to acknowledge and respect that, I think. Really, moving forward and changing the system. I should have some water here, but I don't. I can make it. Hopefully I'll just stop talking soon anyways. But I want to make this point. Like I said, I do believe in changing things. I don't believe we should have the police with the way that we have it. I do believe that things should be reallocated, but I don't believe that the sacrifices that good people make and are willing to make for the protection and service of the community should be ignored, spit upon, or not allowed to grow and evolve and be a part of that community. I have family who work in the fire department, and I read a post from one of them, or part of it at least, or I don't know. I mean, I don't know if it was a long writing, but just whatever the thing. And it said defend the police. It was like defund the police, and then it was crossed out and with defend on right? So hear me out. So this is a firefighter who works intimately with the police often to deal with crisis situations. A firefighter is more about, putting out fires or dealing with certain emergencies, health emergencies. You never really hear about firefighter corruption, but I wouldn't doubt that it exists, especially in larger areas or whatnot. I know my family is good to the heart and bone. Well, let's put it this way: my firefighter relatives are good to the heart and bone and believe in the serving of, the service of what they do. It's a vocation, and it's something that they've been in heat and saved people and animals from death in fires, and there's something to be said for that. So I was looking at this post, okay, and again, I'm saying this, I believe in the defund the police, change the system thing. I don't believe in a violent, get rid of it, blah, blah, blah. I think that we have to be sensible. We have to respect the people who are really willing to help us, because it's not like everyone's all of a sudden going to be like, okay, good, let's, we're going to just not commit crimes and we're going to be good people eventually. But we still have a system where people feel they need to do what they need to do, and people have gotten hurt in their lives and they want to bring that hurt on others. So we need to find the systems that we can minimize that hurt and help the people to be better and change things. So anyways, back to this. So I'm looking at this post, and and I realize that there is something, a contingent to be said for that person who does put their life on the line for service. Who wants, that's what they have. A lot of people don't necessarily know any better, And a lot of people go into these things without the corruption. And I know there's more corruption in the police than the fire department. The point is, there's a humanity involved in all of this. We're dealing with systems that are peopled by people. And it's not about the systems. The systems are designed to evolve and change with people. And people are flawed, every one of us. But people are also good. Every one of us, I believe, has good in us. And most of us have not buried, even some of the worst people I've met, worst as least happy, angry, violent, deceiving, whatever. Most of those still have some shred of light. As Luke says to Darth Vader, there's still good in you, I sense it, Father. And so I think that's a really important to think about when we change these systems. So it's not about tarring and feathering every police officer. It's about finding a ways that we can end the corruption in the service of people in the vocations of serving and helping others, such as the issue with the police. It needs to change. It needs to not be what it is. Things need to be different. It's not just an us against this. It isn't an us against them. This is a changing the system so it works better for everybody. For the people who wish to serve others because there are problems that need attention, to creating so many less problems by, like I said before, getting that point where we redistribute the resources. And we have these microcosms that work to the macrocosms where everything is distributed. I bet that if people have the basics and a little bit extra, without having to break their back and still having plenty of time for their family, which is basics, honestly, and having plenty of time for some hobby, which is basics, honestly, and having a sense of vocation and a kind of a purpose in their life that doesn't kill them or make them want to not wake up in the morning, which is basics, honestly, you can really eliminate a lot of greed. One of the main reasons that there's greed that pervades so much and so many people is because the systems want you to want shit you don't need and make you think that you have to have all of this money, plus they take all of the money and resources away. So yeah, we need to change all that so that we can we can work to end so much of our crime, so many of our problems. And whatever is so in The Hobbit, in The Lord of the Rings, they have some kind of cops of police, right? When they go back to Hobbiton after the great journey, spoiler alert if you don't know the Lord of the Rings story, spoiler alert, stop right now, leave. Because you're going to learn the ending of the tale, part of the ending. Anyways, they go back to Hobbiton, and Saruman has taken over, under the guise of the name Sharky, and there's some orcs there, and there's some bad hobbits. Well, there's been some corruption. Anyways, some bad men. And they encounter the guy who's normally like the cop, the constable, and he's got to be like, hey, well, I got to kind of arrest you. And they're like, oh, dude, come on. This isn't you. What's going on? And he's like, well, and he's shy about it. And he's a good-hearted person and doesn't really know what to do. Everything works out at the end. But the idea is that the Hobbit cops, before the corruption that came in, were, and before they were corrupted by the corrupt system that wanted to corrupt Hobbiton, they just strolled around making sure things were all right, essentially saying hi to the neighbors, drinking a beer at the pub, eating pie. If there's a Hobbit cat that got caught up in a tree, they would try to help get it down or whatever, right? And why not have that sense of service in a community, to kind of make sure things are all right? It can be a lot of fun, and it can be a good way to integrate. But the systems we have now do not work. But I really believe in trying to find the respectful right way to do it. And I'm going to say this. I'm going to be clear about this, on my feelings, since I'm talking about it, since I guess this is what this turned into. I guess that's this jam. Oh, nice. Okay, cool. I get the idea of not having public kind of statues or monuments towards things that directly relate to repression and slavery and stuff like that. But I do not agree with art destruction and acts of, I was going to say unsolicited vandalism. I guess all vandalism is unsolicited. I don't consider making something beautiful vandalism. But the destruction of the monuments and things like that, what I think, I get it, and I'm not gonna sit here and condemn it, but I'm gonna say I don't like it and I wouldn't participate in it. Although I do believe that we can change, we shouldn't have those things. Why don't we have an immediate vote? Instead of knocking the statues down, why don't 1,000 people go up to campus, to the president or whatever, and demand an immediate vote on whether or not we want to keep the statues, or not even necessarily an immediate vote, because that seems like mob rule, but let's say within a very reasonable amount of time, we put it to the community on if we vote on keeping the statues or not. I bet that we wouldn't keep them. Then they can be replaced with other ones, and in a way that's much less violent, much less evocative of torches burning down the village. We can do this better. I get it. I understand. And I know that a lot of people are happy to see these monuments down, and this is the time where this kind of thing happens. But again, as we evolve as people, as the pressure of the horrible system releases, if we have issues like this, I believe we must learn to deal with them in a way that's more evocative of a communal democracy. If those statues and those particular people, and I'm not even sure, what I always understood them to be, not actual people. So, but anyways, it's me not remembering what they are. But no matter what, what about we add to things? What if, as a monument of, rather than ignoring or destroying our history, we add to our history? So as a monument, let's say that we have a statue that for some reason is racist, or whatever it is, that's deemed unworthy, but it's some historical, it's represents a historical situation. Why not put another sculpture next to it that hovers above it, that's larger than it, that's bolder than it, that's more striking, draws more attention, that is of essentially the opposite of what that is. That's something that's the growth of what that is, saying, yes, we come from this, but now we've grown to be this, and we have another beautiful piece of art, and we have another representation of our history, a growth through things rather than erasing. We rise above and beyond, and we realize that beauty can grow, and we grow from the past. I'm not saying that the statues taking down our high art, I don't hate that word now. That our great art, our art that is monumentally important to the development of consciousness. Some people would argue that those kinds of statues and stuff aren't even art at all, but in some sense of the word, they are art. As Art4Truth, I can't help but cringe and feel a bit of pain whenever any kind of art is destroyed. So I do believe that we can call to do better. And if we want to just simply remove some things, we can. But let's not just, like I said, let's do it democratically. Not all statues last forever. But here, listen to this. Because, of course, I always advocate for a greater sense of art integration into our existence, into our everyday lives. And that we could create so much more jobs and purpose for people in their lives if we had far more public art projects going on. So why not let us continue to add art? And again, add to the history. Like I said, let's hover over. Let's make stuff that towers over or outshines somehow the old. Brings in the new level of things and continue to make some stuff in that way. We can alter the other stuff too. And like I said, if statues get removed, But I don't necessarily think we have to. I mean, if we had a better, if we continued to, we had a better management of our resources and how we live and distribute ourselves as people and all that, we could probably, rather than removing public art, we just create new, like, art gardening areas and, I don't know, ideas. Radical and reactionary end up becoming the same thing. Going super to the left or super to the right, both end up as either Hitler or Stalin. Aggressive, violent means to take control from others who have control leads to a violent, regressive regime of control over others. I do not believe that's happened anywhere differently in the world. And I think that we could grow so much more exponentially, so much more beautifully, if we engage in a whole new system of doing things rather than that. Use our hearts. Let us use our hearts to make this work. And with that, folks, I will say goodnight. Thank you very much for listening from this jam. For your ear and your time. Stay together, find love, and make art.